Hello, good evening. What's that question? Barely Stan YouTube video activity showcase. It will happen. I have no idea what you're talking about. Let's see. Same question regarding South Africa. What is the question regarding South Africa? Your thoughts on the South African new government of national unity? I do not know much about the South African politics. Uh, I just realized a couple of days ago I've been calling Marcus. Is it Max? Should I just call you Max? How do I not know? Because I'm too busy following other things. Like there's a lot of countries in the world, and I don't follow South Africa closely enough to be. Um, okay, so I've been pronouncing it like an idiot for months. Good to know. For weeks at least. Wait, is this better? This is slightly better. Yeah, no, I don't have the time to follow South African politics. I know very, very, very vague things about it, but from very far away. I'm too busy with other countries. What is the RN's view on Israel, as well as what is their view on Jews? Their view on Jews, ostensibly, they deny any claims of anti-Semitism. Of course, their founders were incredibly anti-Semitic, and they still have close ties to people who continue to do Nazi salutes and stuff like that. Um, and I don't think their actual views have changed that much. But basically, every far right party in Europe and North America, basically every far right party is incredibly pro-Israel and is incredibly Zionist for two reasons. Number one, just the government of Israel is also far right, and they share the same goals of like hating Arabs. Number two, they want Jews to go to Israel, like they want to leave Israel and to leave their country and go to Israel, which is like a double goal. Like they support Israel because they're far right too. The RN doesn't talk about Jews anymore. Yeah, that's what I mean. They don't talk about it, but they're in favor they're super supportive of the government of Israel. And in the same way that like AFD is also very pro-Israel, but they're also they have policies like banning any kind of halal, no, it's not halal, it's kosher meats in Germany. Like they want to make the life of Jews in Germany suck, so that Jews leave to Israel, so they don't have to deal with any of them. Was Trump's assassination attempt fake? The more I watched it from different angles, the more obvious it was. No, there's no way the Trump assassination attempt was fake. There's literally no way it was fake. Uh, yeah. And as more information is coming out, it's becoming more clear that the shooter was probably just like completely ideologically incoherent. The latest information is that he was also looking up appearance dates for Biden and for other uh, political figures like Merrick Garland, like other people. It didn't seem like this was a particularly targeted thing against Trump himself. This basically was the political equivalent of a school shooting, just basically suicide by cop. Like he wanted to kill anyone. He wanted to get attention as a mass shooter, and die in the process. Yeah, school shooter vibes 100%. School's out at the moment. Like right now is summer holidays in the U.S., right? Because yeah, pure speculation. I have nothing to base this on other than just the type of person that we know he was. But I get the impression that if it wasn't the middle of the summer, there's a 50-50 chance that this would have been a school shooting instead of a political shooting. And again, like there's literally no way this was faked. I think he was conservative but wanted Trump dead because he was verifiably a pedo. Possibly too. Like, we still don't know exactly. Apparently, he had a very limited social media presence. Unlike most shooters, he didn't leave much of a manifesto. I really think this was most likely just a suicide by cop situation. The fact that it got as far as it did is kind of baffling. The number of things that went wrong for him to have come so close to killing Trump is absolutely baffling in the level of incompetence and here's what, after a week of information coming out, here's some of what we know is security at these events is a shared responsibility between local police and the Secret Service. The Secret Service is in charge of the inner perimeter, like the actual person of Donald Trump, and the local police is in charge of the outside perimeter. The location from which the shooter was shooting was outside of the perimeter on a nearby rooftop. They still should have, and apparently they had flagged that location as something to keep an eye on. And I saw like a 3D animation of the position of the Secret Service snipers, counter snipers, and apparently there was a tree between them and the exact location on the rooftop where the shooter was, which is maybe why they didn't notice him right away. And the Secret Service is blaming local police for not having done their job on this. So there's a video online that shows like different angles, social media posts, like different random people who just filmed stuff with their smartphone that shows like the 2.5 minutes between when people first noticed him and reported him to local police that were handling the outer perimeter and the moment that he was shot. And there was like 1.5 to 2 minutes between those two where they were actually like trying to do something about it. It seems that there was one police member who got up to the rooftop and saw the guy in like the last few seconds before he took the shots, but that police officer was still like in the process of climbing, probably had his hands on the ladder or on the rooftop, couldn't reach his gun. The shooter turned around and pointed his rifle at the police officer, so the police officer, rather than just getting shot because he couldn't physically get to his gun, he was still climbing there, rather than getting shot, he's just jumped off the rooftop to not get shot. And in the last few seconds after that, the shooter took the shot and missed. So there's multiple things to keep in mind. There's the whole miscommunication, the fact that they're blaming each other basically. Local police is saying it should have been caught by the Secret Service. Secret Service is saying that it should have been the responsibility of local police. Both are kind of right, that it should have been caught by both of them. Like the number of points of failure for this to have happened is kind of is like it should have been caught by all of them. Number two is that clearly I think there's a level of complacency on the part of the Secret Service in this case, and probably also like the local police is not really trained for these kinds of events. Why would Secret Service even trust local police? Yeah, I think there's a lot of complacency. It's been 40 years since the last assassination attempt of this level on a presidential candidate, or when was the last Kennedy assassination? The Robert Kennedy assassination. That was in 1968. So yeah, the last one. There have been other political assassinations or attempts on like lower profile figures, but the last presidential assassination attempt was in 1984. It was Reagan. 1981. So it's been over 40 years, and just people have become complacent with that. Like the Secret Service has become complacent. Local police isn't qualified to do that, especially in a tiny town like what is it, Butler? What's the Trump? Butler, Pennsylvania. Yeah, Butler, Pennsylvania. Who has ever heard of Butler, Pennsylvania? Like, it is kind of baffling that that they would trust local police for that. Maybe it's state police. I don't know. Um, and the last thing to keep in mind, and this is an important thing, the concept is called security theater. It's the same idea as. Give me a second. So it's the same idea as airport security. The point of airport security isn't really to catch actual attempts to do terrorism. It's not like they have this big show of scanning luggage and searching people and having the machines that see you naked when you pass through them, and like you have to take your shoes off and all of that. Yes, if someone is dumb enough to try, hopefully that whole apparatus will catch whatever explosives or weapons that they try to sneak into the plane. But mostly the point of that is to discourage any attempt. They have this, the fact that they do it so openly is to discourage people from trying, because that works way better than sneakily trying to catch people in the act, which is why it's like this big showy thing that inconveniences everyone, and there's a queue, and yeah, if you show up there as a terrorist with like a bomb in your bag or whatever, you're going to see that queue and you're going to see people getting frisked, and you're going to go, nope, not worth it. If you're like casing the joint ahead of time, you're going to go, nope, this is too much. We're not going to be able to get through this. If it was more low profile, if they had more of a hidden apparatus, more people would try, and therefore there would be a bigger chance of some of those attempts to get through. So the fact that they have it be very open and very impressive looking in most cases is to discourage people from even attempting that. And I think the Secret Service, the fact that there are so many people that wear these big, like, very noticeable black suits with the sunglasses and everything, and, like, you see a Secret Service person and you go, like, that's a Secret Service person. Has there been a plane hijack after 9/11? There's been attempts. There was someone who was who managed to sneak in explosive in his shoes, which is after 9/11, which is why after that people have started to, like, take their shoes off as well. There have been a few attempts, but it's become incredibly rare, in part because, because it's been harder to get through, but also because airport security has become so much more, like, the concept is called security theater. It's not, I'm not making this up. This is a thing that you can look up. I think a lot of the Secret Service apparatus is also security theater, which is why it's actually not as hard as it looks to attempt it. Like, the reality is they play it up as being way more effective than it is, of, oh yeah, we check everything, and when it's in a city, we, like, literally have eyes on every single open window and rooftops of nearby buildings, and we're so good at what we do so that people don't try it. But the reality is, there's so much to keep in mind and so much to be handling at the same time that it's nearly impossible to cover all of their bases, so they just hope that people don't try it. And when they try it, like in this case, they're just unbelievably lucky that the guy missed. And it's like, there's 3D animations of, I was talking about this last stream before we even had the 3D animations. All we knew is that he, like, turned his head towards the monitor, and that's when he got shot in the ear. And now there's 3D animations that show that the trajectory of the bullet, had he not turned his head, was, like, perfectly lined up for his face. It's literally a matter of a tenth of a second. If the shooter had taken the shot a tenth of a second earlier before he turned his head, it would have hit him, like, square in the middle of the side of the head there. Yeah, it was sheer chance that the guy missed. And yeah. And obviously there's a big controversy in the in the wake of that, of I mean, there's many, but one of the most high profile ones is Destiny making fun of the person who actually died from it. The kid shifted to the right a few times to clear the view to the target. I'm not really following. I thought the blood was from glass, not a bullet. No. There's no indication. I don't even think there was any indication that one of the teleprompters was hit. I've seen people share like low quality images where there seems to be a teleprompter that was. Let me see if I can find that. Give me a sec. Yeah, there was a low quality image of a teleprompter that seemed to have its corner chipped, and then people shared the high quality image, and no, it was just a reflection. Yeah, I can't find it. Trump teleprompter. But like we see there's a photo of the bullet in the air. It's not glass. Like glass would not have hit just his ear, and there's no indication that. Let's see, is it this? This does this does not show anything to me. Let's see. Proof that the teleprompter was hit and not real Donald Trump. Teleprompter seems fine there. What is this guy talking about? Like apparently I can't zoom in. The teleprompter is like bumped out of the way, probably by the dozen Secret Service people that rushed the stage. I don't see any evidence that the teleprompter was hit here. Is there anything else? Like this does not seem like glass to me. Like glass would have probably hit more of his face. These aren't cuts. Originally, I thought these would cut. No, this is just the blood that dripped down his face when he was like, when he had ducked. What's funny to me is also people being incredibly. This was the low quality image that I saw. People claiming that this was the teleprompter being hit, and other people shared high quality images of this. And no, this is not a chip on the teleprompter. This is just a reflection of like a nearby white thing. I don't know if I'm gonna find the photo in this, but no, it wasn't hit. Yeah, this is just a reflection. Like you see the red stage here, the red floor, but this is just a corner of the floor. This is not it was not the teleprompter. There would have been shattered glass on the ground. People went to the floor and no one was cut. No, like again, like, and oh yeah, same thing here. See, you see the red part here and you see white here. Like that's part of what we're seeing here. There's no glass. There's no broken glass here. The other thing that it always, every time something like this happens, it's always funny to me how confident people are at saying bullshit. Was the teleprompter a DEI hire? It's so crazy. Like some people were saying, what was it? There's too much blood for an ear injury. This is clearly this clearly fake blood. This is all fake. Have you never had a cut on the ear? Ears bleed a lot. Like why? If you know anything about ear injuries, you know that ears bleed a lot from tiny cuts. And why would you claim that ears don't bleed if you don't know, and claim it so confidently? Like, I don't know why people, like, if you don't know, just shut the fuck up, seriously. A hairstylist accidentally cut my ear. I bled like a pig. Yeah, no, seriously. I once had just a pimple on my ear or something like that. I popped it. I bled for like 2 hours. I literally just entire tissue papers got soaked red. It bleeds. Ears bleed so much from the tiniest things. Imagine, okay, like if you're getting, maybe people think that ears don't bleed because of piercings, but getting a bullet through the ear is gonna bleed a lot. No matter how much, and like you said, hairstylist cutting your ear, yeah, ears bleed. Anything on the face tends to bleed a lot, especially the ears. But yeah, no, one of the big controversies is Destiny making fun of the person who died, and a lot of people. There's an entire industry right now in right-wing media, in right-wing social media, especially libs of TikTok, doxing all the people who regret that the bullet missed. Yeah, no, Jeff, exactly. Yeah, ears bleed a lot. I agree completely. If you don't know, shut the fuck up. And I don't get this rush to BS also. No, completely, exactly. It was part of what I was saying last week also, is like, you don't have to have an immediate take on everything. If you're a social media personality, you're kind of tempted to try to have like a unique take. Hot takes get a lot of views, they get a lot of clicks. But if like, you don't have to force a hot take on everything. The fact that he got banned off of Kick for hate speech, considering what Kick is, like Kick is a hate speech platform, is insane. And even like the hypocrisy of, look, was Destiny being very edgy? Yeah, Destiny is an edgy guy. What came out about the guy who died? Like the argument that I heard, which I don't disagree with, is like, if an innocent bystander gets killed at a shooting at a KKK rally, the bystander is still a person attending a KKK rally. And honestly, again, like I said last stream, I don't condone political violence. And I think the fact that we've gotten to this point is incredibly concerning, and is incredible. We're at a super dangerous point in history, whether it's in the US, in Europe. We're right now on a knife's edge. And had that bullet been shot half a second earlier or half an inch to the right, maybe the US would be in the starting phases of a civil war right now. Maybe the US is still going to go very soon into the starting phase of a civil war. We are really, really on the precipice of history right now. But yeah, again, despite that, I don't condone political violence. But the fact that we're here, I'm not gonna cry about people making jokes about it. I like edgy humor. I don't have any problem with people making edgy jokes, even, yeah, in most cases. Like, I'm trying to, like, you know, think about what I'm saying, but honestly, no, edgy jokes are fine in most cases. Those are not the problems. The problems are what the jokes are trying to say. Like, okay, I talk about this pretty often, like the whole idea. There's a saying in French by a famous comedian, which is, you can laugh about everything but not with anyone. You can laugh about anything, but just not with anyone. And that's true-ish, and a lot of people interpret that as, oh yeah, you can be a racist just behind closed doors with your friend. So what I would say is more like, an edgy joke. Okay, this is a cliche. Context is everything. I think the person who the joke is coming from, it makes the whole difference. And the reason why making an edgy joke in public, in front of people who don't know you, is tricky is because they don't know what joke you're actually making. You could have literally the same exact joke, the same exact construction of a joke with the same punchline and everything. And if that joke is said, okay, let's make it a joke about Jews controlling the media, for example, an anti-Semitic joke. I've seen, by very small nuances, but it could have been exactly the same joke, in the span of a couple of weeks, I've seen Kanye West make that joke and Jon Stewart make the same joke. And it's not the same joke because it's different people. When Kanye West or Nick Fuentes or someone like that makes a joke, that is an anti-Semitic joke. When Jon Stewart does the same exact joke, it's a joke about anti-Semites. That is the difference there, is the person telling the joke affects what the joke is about. You can make a really, really dark racist joke, but actually the punchline is you're making fun of racists who actually believe this. Whereas when the racists make the same joke, they are making a racist joke. And that is a nuance that is very tricky to do in public. And the reason why John Oliver can do it is because John Oliver is Jewish, so it's a little bit harder to attack John Oliver for anti-Semitism. But most importantly, even if John Oliver wasn't Jewish, John Stewart, if it was John Oliver, who I don't think is Jewish, it would be the same thing, because John Oliver has such a public record of we have so much information about his political leanings that Kanye can be an anti-Semite. He made Graduation. I don't know anything about Kanye West music. Anyway, even if it was John Oliver, who isn't Jewish, we have enough information about his political leanings to know that the joke would have been about anti-Semites and not an anti-Semitic joke. But that's a trick. Like, if I were to do that joke in front of an audience of 1,000 people who didn't know me, most people would just assume that I was an anti-Semite, which is why it's kind of tricky to do. To be honest, I have the principle that I only joke about certain groups. If I would tell them both in private and in front of this group, I won't mind if you won't follow it, but I think else it's pathetic. Yeah, I mean, again, I would tell, I have much less of a filter when I'm with people who I know that they know where I'm coming from with the joke. And sometimes I make a mistake. Sometimes I make a joke about myself. I'll make a racist, for example, my partner is Peruvian, and I very often jokingly pretend that I do the Fox News bit. Let me see if I can find the image. Open in a new tab. Yeah, this bit. Cut Trump's aid to 3 Mexican countries. I often pretend with my partner that I think all Latin American countries are Mexico. And when we see a Mexican restaurant, I'll be like, "Oh, look, it's from your country," and stuff like that. I'm not making fun of Latin American countries. I'm making fun of white people who don't know anything about Latin America. I know that Peru is not Mexico. And I tell the joke to my partner because my partner knows that I know that. And that's why, but if I were to tell that joke to someone who didn't know me at all, and they would just be like, "What the fuck? That's kind of racist." Once I was in a car with 2 people that I barely knew, and I completely just I just assumed that it would be obvious that I was joking, that I was making fun of myself. One of them was Greek, and I needed to Google something. I didn't have signal. I borrowed their phone, and the keyboard was the Greek keyboard that I don't know how to read, so I was like, "Oh, could you put the real alphabet on this?" Jokingly, that pretending to think that the Greek alphabet was not a real alphabet. And afterwards I realized I didn't know that person well enough to make that joke. They probably thought I was really weird and racist and stupid. I knew that I was joking about myself, but I probably did not read the room well enough. Anyway. So yeah, the honestly, I don't know if we should go over it on stream, but the interviews that Destiny did about his jokes and about him being banned and about discourse and everything, he's honestly very effectively pointing out the hypocrisy of conservatives, especially conservatives claiming to be outraged at the idea of making light of political violence when no conservative was making fun of complaining about the jokes about Paul Pelosi, Nancy Pelosi's husband, being attacked with a hammer, and they would just furthering conspiracy theories about that and pretending that it was a quarrel between gay lovers, pretending that Nancy Pelosi's husband was actually secretly gay and he was fighting with his lover instead of him being attacked by a psycho who came there to kill Nancy Pelosi. They none of them condemned the assassination attempt on Gretchen Whitmer. They called for the squad to burn themselves alive like Aaron Bushnell, who was protesting Palestine. Every single person, and Destiny has done this on Twitter, every single person who called Destiny out for his joke about the guy who died at the Trump rally has tweeted things like this in the past. It's completely hypocritical for them to now be outraged at the discourse about political violence. Anyway, we got into that pretty fast. How is everyone tonight? Yeah, but I bet you wouldn't joke about the shining path with your partner, would you? No, probably not. I'm doing okay. I had pizza in Lithuania. Cool. Nice. I don't know why. I'm feeling a little bit better today. On Friday night, I went to bed at 2 a.m., so Saturday morning, 2 a.m. I stayed in bed until 8 p.m. yesterday. I woke up just to have dinner. I worked for a couple of hours, and then I went back to bed at midnight and slept until 12 today, until noon today. I don't know. I literally blacked out for 24 hours, for more than 24 hours if you count if you don't count the small lunch break in the middle of sleeping that I had, dinner break in the middle of sleeping that I had. Maybe it's the heat, maybe it's something else, but yeah, I'm dead. I'm feeling better today, but yeah, 24 hours just blackout. You know what it was? It was the CrowdStrike software in my brain that just crashed for 24 hours. That's what it was. I'm sure someone snuck into my apartment and rebooted my brain and deleted the CrowdStrike file, and so that's why I'm functioning today. AI is getting really realistic. That's me right now. I'm an AI functioning on CrowdStrike software. Canada Dead, I hacked at a national park in 25 Celsius. 25 Celsius isn't too bad, is it? I was in Berlin and Hamburg for the first 2 weeks this month. I really want to move to a city now. I hate rural areas, makes me depressed. Yeah. A lot of people tell me the opposite. A lot of people tell me that cities are depressing and that they want to live in the countryside. I always lived in cities, so I don't understand that take. I always like to me the countryside is nice for a holiday. Yeah, but he's finished. Warmest day in history. To me, the countryside is not nice for a holiday, but yeah, living in the countryside to me is incredibly boring. We need to look at the ICJ ruling because that's the big news of the week. Let's find a good link on this. Can I just find the ruling itself? ICJ ruling, but didn't the UN outlaw the occupied territories back in the 1970s? Let's have a look at that. Let's have a look at exactly what the difference is between that ruling and this one. The fact that this one is coming out now, I think, has a lot more significance. The problem is right now I'm finding articles that are from the February ruling, so let's see what we can find. Why is this not working? I should have looked at something ahead of time. If someone can find the actual just the original source of the ruling, like a PDF document of the ruling from this week, and you can post it in the Discord, that would be cool. in the barely general live stream chat of the Discord, or the general Discord, and either one of them. One, what's the practical difference? Let's see if we can find information about what the difference is. There was also a Twitter thread that I thought was like, I would like to look at the ruling itself if it's not too long, because I'm not going to read through like a 100-page ruling in one stream. But there was a Twitter thread of the ruling, like answering questions that I thought was probably going to be useful. Let me find it. Thank you, Jam. Oh, and if it's a press release, it's even better, because that should be okay. Summary. Let's see what we can find. Advisory opinion. Yeah, the problem is it as usual, it's an advisory opinion. So even like yeah, people are gonna dismiss this because it's advisory. How long is the actual opinion? It's 83 pages. We're not gonna read the whole thing. Okay, this one is 5 pages. That's much better. We're gonna look at this. Let's see. Here we go. Let me put this a little bit to the... There you go. So, are we gonna read the whole thing? We got it. The International Court of Justice has today given its advisory opinion in respect of... Let me zoom in. Okay, there we go. In respect of the legal consequences arising from the policies and practices of Israel in the occupied Palestinian territories, including East Jerusalem. It is recalled that on 30th of December 2022, the General Assembly of the United Nations has adopted a resolution, Res 77-247. Oh, the resolution 247, okay. In which, referring to Article 65 of the statute of the court, it requested the International Court of Justice to give an advisory opinion on the following questions. So the problem with international law, as usual, which is very frustrating, is... There's literally no enforcement mechanism for any of this. All of this is just advisory opinions that have, like, there's no UN police that is going to arrest politicians for not doing this. Maybe like ICC arrest warrants would be a different thing. Like, this is, the ICJ doesn't issue arrest warrants. All they do is like come to legal conclusions that then people can listen to or not listen to. So I'm guessing that the ICJ pretty much copy-pasted the resolution 247 into a non-advisory judgment for 2024. I think this is still an advisory judgment. I don't think the ICJ can give anything other than advisory judgments. Yeah, no, it's still advisory, but that's literally all the ICJ can do. It was actually funny. This was something that was so frustrating to me, again, with Destiny stuff, because Destiny was one of the people who's like discussed this the most on the internet at this point. But there was a whole video of his where different people were coming into his stream to argue about different things that Israel was doing that was internationally recognized as illegal, whether it was their annexation of the Golan Heights, whether it was the settlements and all of that. And every single time he would like move the goalposts to not accept that it was illegal. It was always like, what about this analysis by international law experts from this university that have concluded that this thing is obviously not legal? oh, they don't have any jurisdiction. Like these people have no. These are just random law experts who, like, their conclusion has no weight. Okay, what about this judgment by this court? Oh yeah, that court doesn't have any international jurisdiction. And every time they would go up to a higher level, up to like ICJ advisory opinions, and Destiny would go like, oh, this is an advisory opinion. It has no weight. This doesn't matter. There's no way of enforcing this. I want an actual non-advisory opinion from a court that has jurisdiction, that is able to enforce it. It's like, what you want is a pink unicorn. There is no such thing as the goalpost that you have placed the goalpost in a place that doesn't exist. There are no goalposts by which you would recognize this ruling. So by bad faith people, this being like literally the highest level of international law conclusion that you can get from the ICJ would still not be considered valid. And yet it is now like the highest level of as settled as you can get. So Destiny is basically screaming, I want a pony. Destiny is screaming, I want a unicorn pony. If someone came with a pony to Destiny, he would still not be happy with that unless it was a unicorn pony, which doesn't exist. There is literally no way to reach the standard that Destiny was setting in that conversation, which is why it was so like ripping my hair out of my skull, frustrating in that situation. But yeah, so it's still advisory, so it's still going to be ignored by the people who really matter. But it's still important because it's just another international law consensus that reasonable people should be able to point to and say, yeah, this does matter and this does make a difference. It's the same thing with if the ICJ, this is going to take years, it's not going to happen this year, but if the ICJ does rule that the Gaza offensive operation, whatever you want to call it, is a genocide, it will still be an advisory opinion. That is all the ICJ can do. So Germany and the US and the people who still want to support Israel are still going to say, oh, it's advisory, so we don't need to listen to this. The only reason why advisory opinions of the ICJ matter is that then you can point out to especially the US, that is like the country that is constantly crying about, like, claiming to defend and this is a quote, like literally the expression that they use every single press conference when they're talking about Russia or Iran or North Korea, which is the rules-based international order. But when it's a rules-based international order that they don't agree with, oh, all of a sudden they're issuing sanctions against ICC prosecutors, or they're just ignoring rulings whole cloth because they don't agree with the rules of the rules-based international order. It's just all this does. It gives good faith people more ammunition to point out the hypocrisy of the US. And if people take this as like a mark, another one of many marks against the credibility of the US, they're correct to do that. But if they take this as a way of siding with Russia or siding with other countries that are against the US, no, you're missing the point, because those countries are even worse. Those countries don't even claim to respect the international rules-based whatever. Those people just do not give a shit about that. The US follows the rules when they're convenient for them, which is a lot of the time-ish, and then they just show their complete hypocrisy when it's not convenient for them. The other countries don't give a shit about it, and they just violate the rules all the time. Like Russia, like it's not even, there's not even in the same universe of good faith as the US. Like the US is bad faith. Russia is like their good faith is a pink unicorn pony thing. Like their good faith is like every single time a Russian person is speaking at the UN, and I've listened to a lot of UN speeches, and it is like parallel universe reality of bad faith. Same thing with every time I used to listen to Chinese foreign ministry press conferences for work, Same thing, like their level of bad faith on everything that happens. Like every single time something bad happens against them, it's the fault of the United States. And like the way that they interpret international events is like unbelievably just bad faith on every single level. Unfortunately, no one is good faith. This is a very Eurocentric perspective. Of all the big international organizations, or like heavyweight players on the international stage, I have the most faith in the European Union generally. Like when they come to consensus decisions, they have a better record on these kinds of issues than anyone else. But even then, it's not a great record because, like on Israel, all they needed was a couple of vetoes, like from Germany, and they weren't able to declare any kind of support for, or even like lack of support for Israel. I think there was one vote that they took that was like they were refusing to condemn something, or that something that got a lot of criticism from the Israeli government. But yeah, if the ICJ ruled that a violation of human rights were so extreme that Israel had to be invaded to stop them, they would still say, well, nobody has actually invaded. I'm not sure what you're trying to say here. Wait, let me try to read that again. If the ICJ ruled that violations of human rights were so extreme that Israel had to be invaded to stop them, who would still say, well, nobody has actually invaded? I don't think the ICJ could actually issue. I don't think the ICJ would rule that they would actually need to be invaded. What usually happens in cases like this, or like basically what could hypothetically happen, I don't know if this has actually happened in this sequence of events, but let's imagine it's like Iran is preparing to, or like is in the process of doing a genocide against Kurdish people, and the ICJ rules that there's a genocide. They wouldn't rule that it's so bad that they need to be invaded. That would be a decision that would be taken by the US, who would say, oh, this is so bad. This advisory ruling by the ICJ is so bad that we need to invade. The decision to invade wouldn't come from the ICJ, would come from other international players. The ICJ would just say, hey, this is a genocide, or this is a human rights violation, or this or that. I don't think the ICJ would ever rule that a country needs to be invaded. At worst, they would say these are the kinds of reparations which is going to be the case here, as we're going to read. The worst the most they would say is these are the kinds of reparations that would need to happen. No yellow cake, no invasion. Yeah. Anyway, we were like 2 paragraphs in. Court of Justice to give an advisory opinion on the following questions. What are the legal consequences arising from the ongoing violation by Israel of the rights of the Palestinian people to self-determination, from its prolonged occupation, settlement, and annexation of the Palestinian territory occupied since 1967, including measures aimed at altering the demographic composition, character, and status of the Holy City of Jerusalem, and from its adoption of related discriminatory legislation and measures? Essentially, this sounds like, in other words, this is apartheid, kind of. And question B, how do the policies and practices of Israel referred to above affect the legal status of the occupation, and what are the legal consequences that arise from all states that the United Nations from this status? What's the difference between those two questions? I guess this is like, what are the legal consequences at the Israel level, in what are the legal consequences at the international level, I guess, from what I understand. Legalese is always annoying. Maybe I'm totally wrong, but I think there is another kind of order here when the Security Council asks ICC for it or something, when it's enforceable by the Security Council. Possibly, yeah. I'm not an international law expert, so I'm not going to. I tried to get this person on stream, but I wasn't able to. He didn't reply to my message. But yeah, I would like to get someone who actually knows about this more than I do, because I'm just going to be reading this and like giving you my half-baked opinions on just as someone reading English and trying to interpret it in the most reasonable way possible. Noam Chomsky or Finkelstein, quoting Noam Chomsky, mentioned that Jerusalem was a pretty big deal in the wording of the past resolution over and above the West Bank, Gaza. Yeah, we'll have a look at that. I mean, we'll read what the summary of the thing says. In its advisory opinion, the court responds to the questions posed by the General Assembly by concluding that the state of Israel. Okay, these are not just a list of individual bullet points. The state of Israel's continued presence in the occupied Palestinian territories is unlawful. The state of Israel is under an obligation to bring an end to its unlawful presence in the OPT as rapidly as possible. The state of Israel is under an obligation to cease immediately all new settlement activities and to evacuate all settlers from the occupied Palestinian territory. The state of Israel has the obligation to make reparations for the damage caused to all natural or legal persons. This is always a funny thing in legalese, the difference between a natural or a legal person. Natural person is like an actual human being. Legal person is a corporation or any kind of entity, like a association, stuff like that, concerned in the occupied Palestinian territory. I guess a government or government organization would also be a legal person. An ONG would be a legal person. Anyway, breaking news: Biden just dropped out. Oh, holy shit! Okay, we're interrupting this ICJ program by looking at the breaking news. Do you have a link in that in the Discord chat that I can look at? I should have expected this to happen. I knew that there was going to be a big announcement on Sunday. I didn't expect it to happen right now. Holy shit. Biden. Is there a live stream? Okay. Can I open image, new tab, Zoom? Holy shit, this is big. And just to get it out from chat. Okay, there we go. And now it's better. My fellow Americans, over the past 3.5 years, we have made great progress as a nation. Someone should put like the what's it called? The Independence Day soundtrack here. Today, America has the strongest economy in the world. We've made historic investments in rebuilding the nation, blah, 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 touting his record. I know none of this could have been done without you, the American people. Together, we overcame a once-in-a-century pandemic and the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. We've protected and preserved our democracy, and we've revitalized and, okay, more blah, blah, blah. It has been the great honor of my life to serve as your president. And while it has been my intention to seek re-election, I believe it is in the best interest of my party and the country for me to stand down and to focus solely on fulfilling my duties as president for the remainder of my term. I will speak to the nation later this week in more detail about my decision. For now, let me express my deepest gratitude to all of those who have worked so hard to see me reelected. I want to thank Vice President Kamala Harris for being an extraordinary partner in all of this work. And let me express my heartfelt appreciation to the American people for the faith and trust you have placed in me. I believe today what I always have, that there is nothing America can't do when we do it together. We just have to remember we are the United States of America. Okay. Yeah, this is big. This is a big deal. Let me change the name of the live stream. Give me just a second. Edit settings. Wait, where's my, there you go. And more. Give me a second. Save. And save. Okay. I don't know what we would be allowed to play live. I assume we can just... I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, no, this is was I saying this? So open convention, it seems to be, so the speculation that I've seen about this, the people who are pretty well informed about the inner workings of the Democratic Party were saying that it didn't seem like Biden was going to endorse Kamala Harris specifically. It seems like it's going to be an open convention, that there's basically going to be like 3 or 4 candidates. My personal favorite of the options that are available is Gretchen Whitmer. I think the most likely candidate is still Kamala Harris for technical legal reasons, that the campaign funds that Biden has can only be passed on to Kamala Harris, but all of the super PAC money that is independent expenditure, which is most of the money in the race, most of the political spending is super PACs that are independent, they can spend the money for whoever they want. So there's that, all of that money doesn't have to go towards Kamala, but Kamala is in a better starting position ahead of the convention for this. Who are allowed to vote for the candidates in an open convention? The not the super delegates, the individual, the delegates of the Democratic Party. Basically, the conventions kind of work similarly to the Electoral College. For those who don't know, for those who aren't like steeped into American politics, the Electoral College, the U.S. elections, there's a great CGP Grey video that is probably copyright. I don't know if I can play the CGP Grey video on its own. There's a great CGP Grey video explaining this. U.S. elections are a very indirect thing. When you're a U.S. citizen and you vote, you're not actually voting in the election. What you're doing is like your vote as a citizen is an advisory opinion that you're passing on to the delegates, the electoral voters of your state. Each state has a number of electoral voters that is determined by like kind of semi-proportionally to the population of the state, but also like the smaller states have more weight in that. They have compared to the population of their state, they have more delegates than, for example, California. The weight of individual voters in California is way smaller than a voter in a super small state. But actual U.S. citizens voting in the election is an advisory opinion that electoral voters are allowed to disregard if they want to. Now, that is incredibly rare and like basically has never happened, but technically they're allowed to. For the reasoning was back in the day where the Constitution was written, that if something happened, because like there wasn't instantaneous communication back in the day, there wasn't any 24-hour news channels or anything like that. News traveled really slowly. So if something happened between the moment that people cast their ballots, where they may be uninformed about some of the latest developments, and the moment that the actual official event of the actual election, where the electoral college electors cast their actual ballots, which is like 538. Is it 500? Yeah, it's 538. 538 actual electors casting their ballot. If there's been new developments that would affect those votes, they're technically allowed to vote differently from what their state told them to do. The conventions work similarly, except the distribution of delegates are different, and the super delegates are another thing. Like it's more complicated, but it's kind of similar, where primaries are kind of advisory things, and the actual decision of who the candidate is comes down to the people who are voting in the convention, which is not individual people. So right now, because there wasn't a proper primary, because the Democratic Party has been incredibly stupid and irresponsible, which I don't even know if I'm gonna get into, like, the level of stupidity that has gone into insisting on running Biden as the presumptive nominee for so long, and their refusal to run any kind of primary is like political malpractice, is like unbelievably irresponsible. Back when Biden was announced that, back when it became clear that Biden would be the establishment candidate, and there were like two people who ran the primary. There was or three people. There was Robert F. Kennedy Jr. There was, what's her name? What's the name of the woman who also ran in the primary in 2020? 2023 primary candidates, Democratic. They're not even listing them here. It's so... Marianne Williamson. And there were like Dean Phillips. No one has heard about Dean Phillips. Jason Palmer didn't even... Like Dean Phillips, I'd heard his name. Jason Palmer, never heard of him. They're not even listing... they are listing RFK, okay? And Marianne Williamson. These are incredibly long shot. Like, there's no Gretchen Whitmer here. There's no Kamala Harris here. That would have been weird for Kamala Harris to run against her boss, her current boss, or running mates or whatever. There's no the California guy who I'm really bad with names, guys. Uncommitted was the most successful opposition candidate in the primary. That's amazing. So yeah, no. The fact that when it was announced months and months and months ago, everyone mocked Marianne Williamson. I actually liked her. Yeah, no, Marianne Williamson is fine. Gavin Newsom is the name that I was looking for. Marianne Williamson is fine. It's just that she's not establishment friendly, which is why I like her too. I think, but the fact that she's not establishment friendly also makes her a more of a long shot candidate that would have been harder to beat. For her to beat Trump, or maybe not. Maybe the fact that she's anti-establishment gives her makes her more likely to get some of the anti-establishment voters who are voting for Trump because they don't like the establishment. Well, I don't know. That is a lot of speculation there. That's more complicated. I don't think Marianne Williamson would have actually had a chance, but she was a positive influence in bringing this topic to the table, which is what these kinds of candidates are for. Williamson was Biden's final primary challenger. Uncommitted was Biden's final primary challenger, to be honest. But yeah, when they announced that Biden would be the nominee, essentially, when they announced that he was running for re-election, and none of the high-profile names decided to run in the primary, so many people were saying, this is crazy, this is insane. And I heard some of the logic. There was a daily episode, the New York Times podcast, that talked about the reasoning behind their decision to run Biden for re-election, despite everyone thinking he's too old, despite the overwhelming, even back then, the overwhelming concern about his age, was just a pure mathematical thing of, well, the way things are, and again, this was months ago, the way things are right now is that Biden is still doing well in these three really important swing states. And if that situation doesn't change between now and the election, then Biden is probably has a good chance of winning. And we don't have a better option to propose that does better than Biden in these three specific swing states, which is why we're running him again. That was the logic. And I'm sorry that I don't have a lifelong career in U.S. politics as an advisor, but that's insane. The idea that the situation wouldn't change between 8 months ago and now, with a candidate who's 81, 82 years old. 81. He's gonna be 82 like 2 weeks after the election. The idea that he wouldn't have some kind of stroke or some kind of health issue, or just be really old on TV, which is exactly what happened, and which is exactly what essentially, like officially, what ended his campaign. Basically, is this COVID diagnosis that's gonna take him out of the race for long enough that that it would be too bad. Like it would just the final straw on his campaign was the COVID diagnosis. But honestly, it should have been clear for anyone the night of the debate that he needed to drop out. And it should have been clear for anyone months before that debate that it was insane to insist on presenting him as a candidate. But their insistence and the fact that they wasted 8 months, and what they could have done, an 81-year-old getting COVID is not good. Yeah, no, I agree. What they could have done is say, hey, we think Biden has the best chance of beating Trump, but to address the concerns of the majority of Democratic voters who aren't sure about this decision, we are going to have an open primary because we're the Democratic Party. We stand for democratic values, and we are committed to this process. And they could have done that. And if Biden had come out of that actual no thumbs on the scale open primary with other high-profile Democrats jumping into the race, and if Biden had won and they had had proper primary debates with Biden on stage, being in front of cameras at his age, showing that he was able to do that in multiple debates and being consistent about it, that would have been so much of a better, because that would have been if he had managed to do that and keep his shit together through an entire primary campaign, I would have been way more confident in his ability to actually do a general campaign. The fact that they didn't even want to do that made me even more worried about his ability to beat Trump in a general campaign. So they literally played their hand in the worst way possible at every single step in the process. And now the most predictable thing that could have happened has happened, and everyone's hair is on fire in DC because they have 4 months to find a new candidate, put together an entire presidential campaign, and they're also apparently going to be sued by these lawsuits are going to go nowhere, but they're going to get sued by Republican establishments who wanted Biden to stay in the race because he was such a vulnerable candidate to beat. He was the most likely candidate for Trump to beat, which is why they want him to stay in the race. So they're going to try to sue the Democratic Party to invalidate the change of candidate this late in the race. It's baffling that they didn't do anything to address this ahead of time. And one of the major criticisms that's happened for years in the Democratic Party, as far back as at least Obama, is how ineffective they've been at putting forward new talent. The only big names in U.S. politics right now are big names in spite of the Democratic Party. AOC, who's not running for president, I think she's still too young to run for president, is one of the biggest names in the Democratic Party. Not necessarily because she's the most popular, but she's one of the most prominent politicians in Democratic politics at the moment. Gavin Newsom, just because he's a charismatic guy, governor of California, but he's not been particularly pushed by the establishment. Gretchen Whitmer, a little bit. Again, she's very popular in what is it, Wisconsin? Gretchen Whitmer. Michigan, my bad. But they've been, and this is not me coming up with this. I've seen people way better informed than me about U.S. politics do this criticism of they just failed at building up the talent and putting forward. There's 2 generations missing. I think she needs to be 35 to run for president. AOC. Yeah, she's barely old enough. She would be 35 the month before the election. She would be 35 by 2 weeks. So yeah, she could technically run. She's not. Um, there's an age limit. There's like I think it's 35 to run for president. There's another age to run for Congress. That's maybe like 25 or something. And I think to be a senator you need to be 35. I don't remember. There should be an upper age limit, to be honest. But yeah, I guess it's to avoid like an 18-year-old being elected president and then just not knowing what the fuck they're doing. But anyway, like I was saying, there's literally two generations missing in high-profile Democratic personalities. There's Biden is older than obviously Obama. He's older than George W. Bush. He's older than Clinton. He's like a couple years younger than Jimmy Carter. Okay, no, he's 17 years younger than Jimmy Carter. So you have to go all the way back to Jimmy Carter to get or maybe George Bush. Anyway, if you have to go back all the way back to the 90s to the 80s to find a president who's older than Biden is right now, not even than Biden is right now, because Biden is the oldest president that has ever been in the office. But to find a president who would be older than Biden if that president was still alive, which was George Bush Sr., then you have a problem there. There should be so many more big names. I mean, there's that one guy that I'm trying to think of. Give me a second. His name is Cory Booker. Yeah, Cory Booker would be... There should be like 15 Cory Booker aged people as possible nominees. The Kentucky governor, yeah, there's the... Kentucky governor is Andy Beshear, right? Kentucky governor. Yeah, Andy Beshear. There should be more people like this. The fact that none of these people were able to win. There's another one, Josh Shapiro. So I think the one of the best options would be Josh Shapiro, governor of Pennsylvania, as vice president for either Kamala or Gretchen Whitmer would be the best ticket. I think Gretchen Whitmer would be a better option because you would have more of an enthusiastic vote by progressives who really, really, really don't like Kamala. It's not like Gretchen Whitmer is like an AOC type or a Bernie type, but she's closer to that than she's like the sweet spot of establishment friendly enough that you won't get insane people who were calling Bernie a communist who was gonna execute billion, like literally people on MSNBC were claiming to be worried for their own safety if Bernie Sanders became president because they were billionaires and they were worried that Bernie would be like a Soviet style leader in the US. But I think Gretchen Whitmer is probably the sweet spot. MSDNC, basically. I think Gretchen Whitmer would be the sweet spot of being left enough to get an enthusiastic vote-ish by progressives, by some of them at least, by many of them at least, and establishment-friendly enough that she won't get completely smeared by the establishment. Yeah, I know, and Whitmer was the intended target of the alt-right kidnapping attempt by a group called the Wolverine Watchmen. Yeah, no, and she should fucking if she were to run, she should use that because it is such a better. It is the perfect counter to the rest of Pete Buttigieg. No, don't even the kidnapping and assassination attempt against Gretchen Whitmer by Trump supporters. It is such a good counter to the assassination attempt against Donald Trump. The assassination attempt against Donald Trump is going to be the focus of, that is going to be the main center of attention for the Trump campaign. Like, look at this person, look at how brave and tough he was when he was shot in the ear, look at how he's being the target of the deep state and Democrats, even though the assassin, and like there's nothing that links the assassin, would-be assassin, to any actually politically connected people, unlike Gretchen Whitmer, who there was an actual far-right connected attempt to kill her for politically motivated reasons. That would be such a good counter to the Trump assassination narrative. I fucking hate my chair. It is squeaky. It is so incredibly squeaky. It's annoying. So her plus Josh Shapiro, I personally think would be the best ticket, but it's an uphill battle, because Josh Shapiro, Pennsylvania's essentially the most important state. Like the reason why he would be so important, because this is the most important state in the United States right now. I'm going to vote. When I vote, I'm going to vote in Texas because that's my last address in the United States. I'll answer that in a second. So my vote is going to be counted as in Texas, which means that it's not going to be counted because all of the electoral college votes for Texas are going to go to the Republican no matter what. I'm still going to do it for the sake of it, but Texas as a Democrat is an exercise in just the theatrics of politics to go vote as a Democrat in Texas. I mean, there's also the down ballot stuff. Maybe I'm gonna like accidentally elect like a local school district person in Texas because of where my last address happens to be. I'm gonna get a ballot with like local election stuff as well, so might as well vote for Democrats there. But for the presidential election, my vote is not gonna count, which sucks. Pennsylvania votes count, and they count a lot, and that is the most important state in the country. There's other states like Michigan, where Gretchen Whitmer is from, that also are among the most important states. Whitmer-Shapiro tickets would almost lock in those two states in a way that a Kamala Bashir, Andy Bashir from Kentucky ticket would not. Kentucky is almost certainly going to go to the Kentucky is not a purple state. I don't know why they managed to get a Democrat's governor, but they're not. Kentucky presidential votes are not going to go blue. There's no point in having Bashir as the running mates, other than from a national perspective, maybe. But for for Kentucky specifically, that wouldn't work. But getting Whitmer, the popular governor of Michigan, and Shapiro, the popular governor of Pennsylvania, would be, I think, the best way to go, even if you have to, therefore, you have to forfeit the actual campaign funds that is owned by the Biden campaign, because those funds are only allowed to go to Kamala. But there's going to be so much independent expenditure in super PACs that that money is basically going to be dwarfed, and it doesn't really. I don't think it matters. The advantage that they would get in Michigan and Pennsylvania just by having those two names on the ballot would outweigh the loss in campaign funds from not having Kamala be the main candidate. Bashir's dad was governor before, which is probably why that worked. Anyway, no, this is huge news. I knew there was going to be an announcement today. 2 days ago, I was 90% sure that he was going to drop out today, and then yesterday he announced something like he was looking forward to coming back to the campaign trail, and that he was vowing to stay in the race. Something like that came out yesterday, so I was unsure what today's announcement was going to be after all. And I didn't expect it to happen this early in stream, so I expected to be talking. I expected to speculate about it a little bit more ahead of the announcements. But this is huge news. So holy shit. I don't even know what else to say about this. I was saying last stream, and this was a bit of an edgy take of mine last stream. I was saying I don't want him to die, like, and especially after an assassination attempt, I really, really didn't want what I said to be interpreted as a call for violence against Biden at all. But I was saying that probably the best thing that Biden could do at that point was have some kind of a minor heart attack or a stroke or some kind of a minor, a big enough health issue that would take him out of the election, but hopefully he does a full recovery and he can live out the rest of his life as a happy retiree. But the best thing, that if he refused to drop out willingly from the race, I was saying that the best thing he could do for the country was have a health issue that would force him to drop out of the race. And a few days later, he was diagnosed with COVID, and yeah, that was almost a guarantee. That was it. That was the final straw. There was enough behind the scenes grumbling and people going, like, there was the funniest one was Nancy Pelosi saying something like, "I stand with Biden, but he has a very small window to make a decision," which is like the most underhanded way of saying that he needed to drop out of the race. Like, it was like, "Oh, do you think he should drop out? I think he has a small window to make that decision. That means yes, he should drop out now as soon as possible. He can't make that decision later. So if he's gonna drop out, he needs to do it now." Was basically what she was saying in as many words. Let's read this status, and then there was another comment that I forgot to address up higher. 38 people watching right now, which is a little bit more than what we usually get. Please like and share the stream. At least like the stream so it gets boosted by the algorithm and showed on more front pages, YouTube front pages for other people. But yeah, no, that would really help, and thank you for watching. This is really, really big news. So my fellow Democrats, I've decided not to accept the nomination and to focus on all my energies on my duties, which this is really good because this is essentially what I was saying that he should have said in his speech about the assassination attempt, because he was trying to do two things at the same time. Wait, is he endorsing? I'll read this in a second. So what I was saying last week when he did the speech about the assassination attempt, where he was trying to do the "I'm above politics, we just need everyone to come together, and political violence is really bad," and it was a lot of just letting the Republicans control the narrative. Like, the Republicans were outraged about the political violence and the aggressive rhetoric from Democrats, which, again, it was 10% as aggressive as the Republicans have been for years. And Biden was essentially being, like, uncontroversial, trying to bring people together, fully conceding to the Republican narrative of this was the result of violent rhetoric from Democrats, essentially, which is like accepting a big L as a candidate. I think it was the right move as a president. That's what presidents are supposed to be. In a lot of countries where presidents are not really that politically important in the day-to-day stuff, like, I don't know, Germany or like France is different. France actually has an important president, but most parliamentary systems either have a king or a president, and the king and the president is usually like the uniting symbolic figure that is there to be above party politics and just to unite the country under like one charismatic, nice, uncontroversial figure. That's what Biden was supposed to do, but that's not what a U.S. president can do, especially during an election that is so tight and that is against a basically literal fascist. You can't take that narrative when you're running against a fascist, even if there's political violence. As much as I don't like that there's we're at a point where there's political violence, you can't be. I was hoping that he would do this. The situation is so critical that in a atmosphere of political violence, I need to be the person to unite the country. So I will drop out of the race to focus on running the government and being a uniting figure, and I'm going to let the Democrats figure out who the candidate would be, or I let my running mate Kamala Harris take on the ticket or something like that. That's what I thought he should have done last weekend. It turned out that he didn't use the shooting as the impetus to do that. It basically seems to have been like, again, the final straw was the COVID diagnosis. I'm also 82, which is why I struggle to speak. But yeah, this came a week late, but I'm glad that it came anyway. Focus all my energies on my duties as president for the remainder of my term. My very first decision as the party nominee in 2020 was to pick Kamala Harris as my vice president, and it's been the best decision I've made. Debatable. Today, I want to offer my full support and endorsement. Ooh, okay, so he's not doing what the better connected journalists were saying he was considering. So he is endorsing Kamala Harris, which probably means it's going to be her. Democrats, it's time to come together and beat Trump. Let's see what happens if there's still going to be an open convention. There's gonna be a lot of backdoor politics here. I think Kamala Harris, optically, she's just not. She doesn't have the presence. She's not particularly good on the debate stage. And she's a constant target of ridicule by the right. For that is in part for that stupid line that she was using, like the what can be unburdened by what has been, which is like a nice poetic line, but she's used it way too often for it to be effective in any way. Basically, what that line is, first of all, it's not folksy and it's too poetic to be like folksy and effective. It's more of a it's more of a poetic line. But what that line could maybe have been a less good version of the Obama, there's no red America and blue America, there's the United States of America. But Obama didn't use that 50 times in 50 different speeches. If he had, people would have made fun of him for that. He used it in one really important speech that became iconic, and that's why that line became iconic. Now, the what can be unburdened by what has been would not have been as iconic, but it's the kind of line that she was probably proud of having come up with that, or her speechwriter coming up with that. She should have saved that line for an important speech and put a lot of emphasis on it and use it once, and that would have been the most impactful way of using that line. But the fact that she used it like 50 different times in 50 different speeches is an easy thing to make fun of. Anyway, so Biden did endorse Kamala Harris. I'm not too surprised. I wasn't sure he would. I think that he considered not doing it, according to a lot of people who are better connected than I. I say better connected than I am. I'm not connected at all. So that doesn't mean anything. But people who actually knew were having like unnamed sources from inside the Democratic Party, from inside of the campaign, were saying that he was considering not. Okay, bye, Jem. He was considering not endorsing Kamala Harris and just letting the process take place. But yeah, not gonna lie, if Harris starts maniacally laughing at Trump in the debate, she is gonna win in all 50 states. That would actually be funny, and that would be a very funny meme. That could actually work. It would work better than Republicans using the unburdened by what has been or whatever the line was. Anyway. Okay. Let me find. Okay. Fua consternation. There was a question you asked earlier that I wanted to address, but it's been like 10 minutes. If you remember what that question was, can you ask it again? And if not, I'm just going to move on to a different topic, and we can go back to the ICJ ruling. I know this is utterly irrelevant, but Let's Do This is a Payday 2 reference. Now we know who has been the real president all along. What? I have no idea. Political violence by Trump supporters will increase because she is a black woman. Oh, like the rhetoric. She's going to be the DEI candidates for sure. Yeah, it's kind of I wanted to do some to post something about this. I haven't had time. But it's kind of genuinely psychotic how openly racist conservatives are now. Every time you see something DEI, which is funny because, for example, Elon Musk has tweeted that DEI is another word for racism, and he's actually right but not in the way he thinks. Because now, literally every single time anything bad happens, even if there's no, like when it's like the assassination attempt and a bunch of the people on the Secret Service detail were women, oh, it's DEI. But literally when there's no indication of anything to do with any black employee or anything like that, they still think it's DEI. They literally blame every single problem happening in the world right now on women and foreigners or black people or minorities in general. That is their thing, their go-to thing. Something bad happens, it's black people, it's women, it's foreigners, it's minorities, it's whatever. It's never white people. Nothing bad ever happens because a white person made a mistake. If something bad happens, it's, you know what it is? Let me find this quote because it's literally the same thing. It was a Ford quote. Let me find the exact quote. Where is it? Maybe this one, this article. There's an insanely anti-Semitic quote by Ford, and that's essentially what they're doing with DEI now. He has so many anti-Semitic quotes that I'm not even finding the specific one that I'm looking for. Fuck, I want the exact quote just to make sure that I don't paraphrase it. But if I can't find it in the next 2 minutes, I'm just gonna paraphrase it off of memory. But it would be so much better if I could find the actual quote. Holy shit. There's a book by Ford called The International Jew. Yeah. Ford, there's this, I think I talked about it last week on stream. There was a meme that I saw a few weeks ago that was like, I'm still reading the quotes, trying to find the right one. Elon Musk started as the Henry Ford of our generation. Genius, billionaire who revolutionized the car industry, and he ended being the Ford of our generation, an anti-Semite who bought media companies to push right-wing voices, far-right voices, something like that. And it's so true. Ford, no one ever talks about this when they talk about Ford. They just talk about the cars. They just talked about Fordism and how he did revolutionize a lot of the of just industry in general, manufacturing in general. But the Ford should be remembered as one of the people who influenced Hitler. Literally, Hitler was a Ford fan, not for his cars, for his anti-Semitism. And yeah, the idea that that Nazism and fascism came from Germany and Italy is like, no. There was so much of that in the U.S. at the time. Okay, I can't find the quote that I'm looking for, so I'm going to have to paraphrase it. But it was something along the lines of, when something bad is happening in the world, look for the Jews because they're close by. Something like that. And that is basically what conservatives are doing with DEI now, which is when something bad happens, whether it's the CrowdStrike thing that literally no one has any indication that any minority has anything to do with that, but they're still saying it's DEI. The bridge collapse from a few months ago, DEI. The Boeing crashes, DEI. Even like there was the Boeing crash where there was a door that flew out, and it turned out that the pilot was a black woman. The door flying out has nothing to do with the pilot, but they were still blaming it on the black woman pilot because DEI. Like, it's not the management policies by white men. Almost certainly, like we know that it's like the billionaire owners of Boeing who've been stripping down the security measures at Boeing to the point where they had so many failures at so many levels. That doesn't matter. No, it's DEI hires who caused all of that to happen. It's just insane levels of racism. Anyway. Either way, the election has gone from a contest determined by fractions of percentages to fractions of percentages. Kamala will close the gap, especially with a good VP. Yeah, no, I agree. Kamala, I would rather... I still hope that the convention will be a little bit more disputed, because the idea that a disputed primary or a disputed convention hurts the final candidate because, oh, they've had so many bad press against them, or like attack ads by other candidates, that bullshit. I call bullshit on that. They come stronger from the process because they beat everyone else. I always think that. I've always thought that in every process. So I still hope that there will be a disputed process, that the best actual option will come out of the convention. But definitely Kamala Harris has an advantage that goes beyond her actual capabilities as a candidate just because she's the current VP and that she was endorsed by Biden. We'll see what happens. I give it a 70-30 chance that it's going to be Kamala Harris, and the remaining 30% is split between the other possible candidates like Gavin Newsom, like Gretchen Whitmer. Yeah, it's almost certainly going to be Kamala Harris, but we'll see what happens. I think their best pick for VP would still be Shapiro from Pennsylvania. I hope that if they go with Kamala, I hope they still go with Shapiro. You never know with the Democratic Party. I know the Democratic Party is really not the best, but they're. What's funny with this? You know how I was talking about this with a conservative a few days ago. You know how Dianne Feinstein. Where's Bernie anyways? Bernie was the entire like squad, and the Bernie wing of the Democratic Party was full on behind Biden for like very frustrating reasons of they didn't want to look like the progressive wing of the party was undermining Biden. It would have looked bad for progressives to do that, which is why they've been backing Biden, but stupid. I mean, I think there's validity of in their decision to do that, but I still disagree with it. Anyway, Dianne Feinstein, who died not too long ago. So I shouldn't be making fun of the dead, but it was still a funny meme, and it wasn't from me, so I'm still gonna bring it up. Let me find Okay, I'm gonna have to show it in two different separate images because I can't find the one with both at the same time. So this was one of the last photos of Dianne Feinstein alive, coming back to the Senate after time at the hospital. We've known, we had at this point we had known for years that Dianne Feinstein was full on dementia. So she was the oldest senator probably in the history of the Senate. And we had known for years that she fully had dementia, that she was not there anymore, that her staff was doing all of the work. She was basically being wheeled around on her wheelchair for like weekend at Bernie's, like symbolic purposes of, well, she's still technically the elected senator. But essentially this was her at that point. And this is the meme that came out of like, I love Senator Dianne Feinstein in that one SpongeBob episode. They were just rolling her around, pushing her around on her wheelchair for months and months and months and months, while she was incapable of having conversations, of remembering who she had talked to. And recently she died. I would vote for Dianne Feinstein today, in her current state, if they dug her out from the grave and put her back on the wheelchair and just wheeled her around DC. I would vote for Feinstein today over Trump. So I do not care who the Democratic candidate is. That is how dangerous of a moment we are in US politics. And honestly, I always say this, European politics are just a few years behind. We are at the cusp of like a major, what the technical term is, democratic backsliding that is happening all over the world. And we need to fight this as much as possible in the ballot box, and we are going to come out of it on the other side, but we're going to go through complicated times. And in the meantime, as long as there are still elections, which might not be for that much longer, I would vote for a corpse of whoever it is over a fascist, or over not voting. I would vote for a corpse over not voting, because that's how dangerous the fascists are at the moment. Let me see. What did I miss in conversation? Danielle, Harris Shapiro would be a black woman and a Jewish man. I don't think the U.S. is ready for that. Again, I hope that a lot of people agree with me that they would vote for a corpse over Donald Trump, and hopefully that's enough. Hopefully they would vote for a black woman and a Jewish man over a corpse. So hopefully that would make it better than a Dianne Feinstein type weekend at Bernie's candidates, like we had. Essentially, I don't think Biden was as bad cognitively as Feinstein was in her later months, but yeah, I do think that there's a point of maybe that would be, it certainly would be a historic ticket. Yeah, I still think it's I hope it's going to be Whitmer, Shapiro. I don't care who it is. I'm voting for them. It's just frustrating that I'm voting for them in a state that where my vote is not going to count. Necrocracy Lamau. Yeah, that's an actual. I don't know if you coined that term on your own, but that's actually a term. That's the term that is used for North Korea. North Korea technically, what was his name? It's not Kim Il Sung. It's the first. I'm not talking about Kim Jong Un. Yeah, it is Kim Il Sung. Yeah, Kim Jong Il. I was confusing Kim Jong Il and Kim Il Sung. So I had Kim Il Sung right. Kim Il Sung, the founder of North Korea, who is the grandfather of Kim Jong Un, is still officially the president of North Korea, even though he's been dead for a really long time, which is why people jokingly refer to North Korea as a necrocracy, because their president is a dead guy. The left needs to weaponize hatred and fear to win. I don't like that that's the case, but the left needs to be better at fear mongering, but like in a real way. Like, there are reasons to be afraid right now. There is every reason to be afraid right now. We are in the most dangerous situation. And I say we, but because this also applies to any European countries right now, we are in the most dangerous situation that we've been since the end of World War II right now, with the rise of fascism. That is where we are, and the institutionalists need to stop sugarcoating this. Didn't the left in France weaponize the fear of the neo-Nazis? Yes, and they were right to. Exactly. That was a very good thing. That is, but the other day I was listening to the BBC and I was so angry at the honestly journalistic malpractice of the BBC on this, which is the Supreme Court ruling of the criminal immunity for Donald Trump for any official acts. And for it's not just that he's immune for official acts. It's also that courts can't even look at evidence that come from his time in office for things that aren't official acts. So he's basically immune for anything he does in office, up to and including assassinating political rivals. He can basically do anything as long as he says this is an official act. He can still be impeached and removed from office technically, even though literally removal from office has never, ever, ever worked. Presidents have been impeached, but the removal from office is the next step from that, and that has never happened. And so an impeached president, it doesn't do anything. The impeachment starts the procedure for the possible removal from office. But as we've seen twice with Donald Trump, the removal from office hasn't worked. So the impeachment meant nothing in both cases, which is so frustrating because the second time that they refused in the Senate to convict Trump, Mitch McConnell explained his decision to vote against impeaching Trump by the fact that he was already leaving office, or maybe at that point he had already left office. It was a few days after October 6th, October 7th, whatever. Is it October? Anyway, January 6th. October, like, I'm confusing my bad dates in politics right now. So it was a few days after January 6th, so he was already technically out of office, but they refused to convict him in the Senate because Mitch McConnell had said, it's not our responsibility anymore. He is still responsible for January 6th. We consider him, this is Mitch McConnell saying this, which is insane, which is like such an indictment against Trump that the leader of the Republicans in the Senate and in Congress in general, Mitch McConnell, was coming out against him saying, we voted against impeaching it because it was out of our hands. He was technically out of office already, so it didn't matter that we voted to convict him or not. We voted against that, but he should still be gone after by other courts because that now that he is out of office, it is in the hand of the criminal justice system. It's not in the hand of the Senate anymore, which was the reasoning of Mitch McConnell at the time of his second impeachment after January 6th. And now the Supreme Court has ruled, nope, it's out of the hand of the criminal justice system as well. There is no accountability by the criminal justice system against Trump or against any president for anything that they do while in office, which, because of the way the Supreme Court is structured right now, will only ever apply to Trump. And we'll see if Trump might be the last democratically elected president of the United States. We'll see. But again, we're in a super dangerous moment. Why did I bring up... journalistic malpractice. That's where I was going with this. So every legal analyst that has spoken about this ruling, the criminal immunity ruling, has said this is insane. This is essentially, this could be the end of the U.S. democratic experiment. This is way more dramatic than it sounds at first reading. If you are alarmed when you hear about this the first time you hear about it, you should be even more alarmed than that, because this is like hair on fire, DEFCON 1, just absolutely emergency, break glass in case of emergency, democracy is on the verge of being over level of Supreme Court ruling. And the BBC covered that Supreme Court ruling by being as unsensational as possible, going, the Supreme Court has ruled that the United States president has limited immunity for official acts. And they didn't elaborate on that any more than that. They didn't, it was just ridiculously downplaying the severity of the situation, because the BBC is the BBC, and there's, like, the BBC is the perfect example of what I was calling out in one of my shorts about how the institutions of democracy are just refusing to defend themselves against an all-out onslaught by fascists trying to take down democracy worldwide, and right now, especially in the United States. There is a chance that the U.S. becomes Gaza. Maybe not Gaza, because the U.S. is way bigger than Gaza. But we were talking on stream a few weeks ago about the movie Civil War. Yep, we might be there in a couple years. We might be there in a couple of months. More than a couple. We might be there next year. We'll see. I hope not. I really, really hope not. But no, that is the situation in the U.S. And because of how important the U.S. is at upholding the rules-based international order, to go back to the hypocrisy that I was pointing out earlier, as shitty as they are, as hypocritical as they are with that rules-based international order, they are the linchpin. They are the what's that meme? This is the U.S. upholding liberal democracy in the world right now. The U.S. is not very good at it, but it's like the last thing standing. Okay, maybe I am a big champion, despite all of its imperfections. I'm a big advocate for the EU. We'll see how long that holds with the new composition of the EU, which didn't go as bad as it could have gone, but given another couple of election cycles, and the EU might also be completely controlled by fascists. But this is the door is democracy, and the fascists are on the other side, and this is the level of ineffectiveness of democratic institutions, is this level of self-defense against the way fascists are trying to manipulate the system to take down democracy. So there are reasons to be worried. Now, I don't mean to sound doomer about this, because as has always happened in history, things are going to suck, and then they're going to get better, and we will get through it. But it's not looking good at the moment, and hopefully hopefully we can avoid the worst, and the situation just sucks 10% instead of sucking 90% or 100%, and then we can get better as soon as possible. But there are very good reasons to be concerned, and if raising alarm can motivate a few more people to go vote, and it can be like the last few votes that were needed to keep fascism at bay for another 4 years, until we need to do it again and again until the wave of fascism dies down, then we need to do that, because the accelerationist logic of let's let the fascist win so that people realize that fascism is bad is not a good approach to things, because the problem with fascism is that fascism begets more fascism. Like, when fascists take over, they take over the media, they take over the courts, they take over the narrative. And because their specialty is validating the majority opinion in white countries, white people, in Hindu countries, Hindu people, and in Israel, Jewish people, whatever, because that's what fascism does, is validating the majority opinion while fear-mongering about threats against the majority population, one of the biggest contributors to fascism in a population is how scared they are. And so because fascists are going to continue to fearmonger about immigration, the more fascists win, and the more they take over media companies and state media and turn those into mouthpieces for their narratives, the more people are going to be afraid and get more worried. The 118 FV, yes, I am going to, but it's going to take me time because I'm too slow at making videos. I will make a similar video to the one I did about the national rally, about the Brothers of Italy, hopefully by the end of the year, but it's going to take a while. Project 2025 is just waiting for the next Republican president. Yeah, that's another one. Right now, Donald Trump is going like, "Oh, I don't know anything about this Project 2025 thing. This has nothing to do with me. I'm not interested in this." Apparently, there's like some small level of truth to that Donald Trump is not interested in talking about anything to do with after Election Day. Right now, his 100% of Donald Trump's focus is literally Election Day, and like none of what happens after is even, he's not even preparing any of his staff for after the election. He doesn't want to think about it. He doesn't want to talk about it. He's just focused on the election. So in that sense, he's not involved with Project 2025, but we know that Project 2025 is ready and available, and all the legal reasoning has been done. And they don't need to think about it until the election, because all they need to do is on day one of their new term. That's when Trump would go, "Oh, what's this Project 2025 thing? I've never heard of this before. Oh, wow, this looks really good. Let's do this." Dictator for one day. Yeah, of course. He's like a dictator for one day, so he changes the rule so that none of what he does is technically a dictatorship anymore, because he changed the rule while he was a dictator, kind of thing. Let's take the dictator for 0 days over the dictator for 1 day, guys. I saw something recently about the possible knock-on effects of if the U.S. descends into civil war. So stuff like emboldening Russia, commandeering of sides by outside groups and stuff. Yeah, no, it's terrifying. What my worst case scenario when Russia invaded Ukraine was, I'm still 99% sure this is the case, but basically one of my first thoughts after the invasion of Ukraine was China is observing this very, very closely, and they're observing the international response to Russia and the amount of either sanctions against Russia and actual support, like physical support, tangible support that Ukraine is going to get by the international community, because that is going to be an indication of how feasible and how consequential an invasion of Taiwan would have been. So the fact that Russia is struggling so much in Ukraine, the fact that Ukraine has gone, in my opinion, not enough, but still a very substantial amount of support from the international community, was enough for China to go, maybe we're going to wait a little bit longer. But in a situation where Trump is in office and either the U.S. is in civil war and it's not in a position to defend Taiwan or to lead the international response to help Taiwan, or Trump is in office and Trump has literally said that he didn't give a shit about NATO and that he would let Russia and China do whatever the hell they wanted to other countries, it's a 99% guarantee that that China would go for Taiwan in that situation. Why do you not agree? What consternation? The frightening thing for many of the U.S. outside the U.S. is the knock-on effect. It's like a fascist international that's exactly my thing, and that's exactly why I'm concerned about, for example, Meloni being such a moderate and being such a moderate figure for other fascists to point to, and which is why I hate it every single time I get a comment that's like, "Oh, but look at Meloni. She came from a far-right party and she's doing fine." Yeah, she's doing fine because she's validating other far-right parties, and she's said so herself when she was elected. And the strategy right now for fascism is to present an electable face, to present a moderate face, so that they can get as many countries in the world to fall into fascism, and then we'll see what they actually wanted to do. When a fascist party, if a fascist party gets elected tomorrow with like 51% of the parliament in their country, and they barely have any leeway to do anything at all, they're not gonna rule in an extreme way. They're not gonna rule in a radical, real, true fascism kind of way. Even if they have a bigger majority, but they're bordered by countries who aren't fascists and who could either like put sanctions on them or take votes to like exclude them from the European Union, although that would be like they would have the backing of Orban and other people. But like any kind of international accountability that they could have from non-fascist countries is something that fascists are concerned about right now, which is why they're being very careful about how they act once in power. Except if they're like Israel, because Israel has the full support of the United States, so they don't even need to hide their fascism. And like India, no one pays attention to them, so that's a whole other thing. But the reason why I'm concerned about moderate seeming fascists in Europe is that once most of Europe and the European Parliament and the leadership of the European Union, like all of the different bureaucratic organizations in Brussels have shifted to fascist control, that is when you will start to see what their real intentions are, and I don't want us to get to that point. I love it when I get moderates commenting in my videos going, but how do you really know that they're fascist? Like, what they're saying doesn't sound that unreasonable, so we might as well give it a try. Like, why are you so in a hurry to agree with fascists just to give fascism a try? It's like we've never tried. We have big economic problems that haven't been solved by the center right or the center left. We haven't tried racism yet. Maybe that's gonna solve our economic problems. Like, what the fuck? It's like, how is that a solution to anything? To turn this on its head, what would the world look like if China controls Taiwan? In the grand scheme of things, it wouldn't make that big of a difference. I would like to see the opinion of people who know more about it than me. There would be like knock-on effects from the control of because Taiwan is the biggest manufacturer of what's it called? Is it microchips? Or like the super important thing that is used for basically every technology today. Is essentially manufactured in Taiwan. So that would be a big deal. It's the same thing as for Russia's invasion of Ukraine. If Russia invades Ukraine and stops there, that would suck for Ukrainians, but in itself, it's not as big of a deal. The problem is it doesn't stop there. The problem is Russia being allowed to take over Ukraine is then Russia being allowed to take over the Baltic states, Latvia, Lithuania, and whatever. Is Lithuania one of the Baltic states? I'm always confused. Baltic states. Yes, Lithuania. I confuse Lithuania with another one whose spelling is similar. So yeah, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, those are NATO members, but a crumbling NATO that is undermined by Trump and that doesn't have the backing of the United States, and Russia is able to completely take over Ukraine, that is a green light for Russia to take over the Baltic states, and then maybe Russia to take over Finland, because if there's no NATO to defend Finland, then they have a massive border against Finland. The question isn't what happens if Russia takes over this one country and like it sucks for the people in that country, but it doesn't mean anything. It's more what it means that they're allowed to do this when the international rules-based order post-World War II has been that wars of aggression and wars of conquest are no longer allowed. Like that was the whole logic of the stupid it has always been stupid to think this, but the whole logic of the end of history narrative in the 90s that no border was ever going to change again, that the borders that had been in place for a couple of decades post the collapse of the Soviet Union, that was it. There's never going to be another war of conquest. There, like the times of Napoleon and all of that, done. Stupid. We like the idea that an order that had been in place, if you want to talk about like liberal democracy, for like a couple of 100 years at that point, and like was barely even stable in the 90s. It was like at its peak of stability in the 90s, and it was barely even stable. The fact that that was going to be like the state of things for the rest of history, when there's already thousands of years of history of things being incredibly unstable, and like history always taking unexpected turns, oftentimes by very, very small events that determine major changes throughout history. There is no reason that things as they are today, or things as they have been for your lifetime and my lifetime, or even things as they have been for the lifetime of your grandparents who are older, in the grand scheme of history, that's a tiny insignificant snapshot of history. And there's no reason to think that that is going to be the stable state of things for the rest of time. There's no reason to think that that is going to be the stable state of things for the next 10 years. It would take time for it to degenerate into chaos completely. So the next 2 years are probably going to be fine-ish, even if Trump wins. But it can, like 10 years is nothing in the grand scheme of history. And if you add to that climate change and climate refugees, massive migratory flows of climate refugees, combined with fascist governments using refugees as a scapegoat for all of the other things happening in the world, if you combine that with economic inequality and major corporations and billionaires supporting fascist politicians taking power, that all of those things, the combination of all of those factors, and artificial intelligence and the ease of production of high quality, undetectable fake news that is going to come literally any month from your smartphone, you are going to be able to manufacture videos that will be impossible to tell, like fully manufactured video are going to be impossible to distinguish from actual real life footage. And that is a terrifying thing, because the idea that Russian troll farms were able to influence the 2016 election, which is not a conspiracy theory, there's like, that is as established a fact as you can have. Imagine what happens when any person's smartphone becomes as powerful as a billions of dollars or billions of rubles, billions of dollars because rubles are worthless, investment into a troll farm that has, I don't know if it's hundreds or thousands of employees. Now with ChatGPT, and as ChatGPT continues to get better, you can have ChatGPT generating the same volume of news, of fake news, and of troll trolling online as an entire troll farm that had billions of dollars of investment would have had before ChatGPT. You combine that to text-to-image generation that is super easy to do, combine that to text-to-video generation, you combine that to videos that you can manipulate super easily with AI, and right now the ability of counter AIs to detect tampering in those things is not great. That combined with all the things that I was listing before of the climate refugees and the rise of fascism and the economic inequality and the billionaires, all of that, we're in scary times. And we need to get out of this, and we need to really start. We should have been building up defensive measures for democracy 20 years ago. And I don't know if it's too late. It might be, but we need to give it our best try, because that is like so much of the world right now is hinging on the dying efforts of democracy to keep fascism at bay. Also, there are black swan events that nobody has ever... Exactly. Like, all of the things that I'm listing right now, those are the things that we know are huge, concerning things that could happen. What if, I don't know, ISIS gets control of a nuclear bomb? What if, like, because, you know, Pakistan has a major Islamic extremists being actually pretty influential in Pakistan. There's a lot that can happen between Pakistan and India when it comes to, like, both of those countries are nuclear states. Iran and Israel. What the fuck is going to happen with now that the Houthis are bombing Tel Aviv? Yeah, it's scary stuff, and there's so much tiny, like, so many things that we don't even know might happen. Just like think of this, the impact and the level of danger from ChatGPT, when ChatGPT, like from ChatGPT style AIs, whether it's text or images or video or viruses that could be coded by AI. I know that right now the AI codes aren't very effective. Like the apparently software developers who have tried to use ChatGPT for coding, it takes them longer to fix ChatGPT code than to just code the thing from start. But that's not necessarily always going to be the case. And 2 years ago or 1 year ago, no one had ever heard of ChatGPT yet. It has been in development for a long time, but we had never heard of the level of I'm a programmer, AI code is useless currently. Cool. Starfrost, you're on my Discord, right? Yeah, I know LLM generated code is mostly shit at the moment. Okay, can you DM me, because I'm looking for people who really know about this topic for a future video. So please send me a DM, and we need to talk in coming days when I have time. When we say, like, AI code is useless, I know it is right now, but, like, AI generated images were useless until they weren't, and now we are actually seeing what okay, I need to go point by point, because now I'm getting sidetracked on other things. Now we're actually seeing, like, fake news that is being influenced by AI generated images. Eventually it's going to be enough, like, AI generated code that is so bad that it makes your device crash might be accidentally bad, but it could still be used for maybe it could still be used to mass generate, like, faulty software that causes outages like the one that we saw. I don't think AI had anything to do with the recent the recent software crash that affected the rest of the world, but, like, these are things that are definitely 100% going to have an impact on the world. One hilarious development that I kind of hope we're going to see related to AI stuff, but, like, tangentially related, is this. Is this the best photo I have of it? So you know that AI images are really, really bad with hands, and one of the first things you need to do when you see an AI photo is, like, zoom in on the hands, count the fingers. So when you see, like, this, when you zoom in on the hands, or this, you go, like, yep, okay, AI, I don't need to, like, this is obviously not real. So apparently there are or I don't know if this is just purely a joke or if it's an actual idea, but you can buy, like, a fake extra finger to put on your hand, so that when you do a crime and you get photographed doing it, you can claim that it's a fake photo and that it was AI generated. Like, these are the kinds of results from faulty AI that might still have an impact on the world, even if the AI isn't as useful as it could have been. Like even if like the failure of AI is still leading to a genuine problem that needs to be solved from that failure, is what I'm saying. The AI bubble is bursting. I've seen things about the AI bubble, maybe possibly starting to burst, which is also something that I'm monitoring at the moment. But yeah. My biggest hope is that the with AI, my unless major regulatory systems are put in place in the next couple of years, which might also happen, but I actually don't give much of a likelihood to that. But my biggest hope is that AI. Sorry, what was I saying? Is that essentially, from what I've read about this, for example, let's take ChatGPT, generative text AI. They've essentially taken all of the internet and all of the digitized books that were available and all of the literally everything ever posted to Reddit ever and everything ever posted to a public forum ever and every tweet ever tweeted and all of the publicly available text that they could find on the entire internet, which is a lot. And they fed that into the algorithm. And they went even, and when that wasn't enough to get AI to generate credible, like believable text, they then started to implement audio to like better transcription services so that they can then feed transcripts of podcasts, auto-generated transcripts from podcasts and transcripts from YouTube videos and everything that they could possibly do, feed that into the algorithm. And essentially, it's possible that right now is the peak of the quality of AI. We're like near the peak of the quality and the believability of AI text because they've run out of source material. They've run out of like the raw text that they could feed into the algorithm to make the algorithm better. I'm sure but it's entirely possible they're going to find other ways to improve it. But from what I've read, they're actually struggling to find new sources from which they can source the training algorithms or the training data sets for ChatGPT and for similar things. The quality also goes down. You have LLM generated text. If you have LLM, yeah, the model collapse, it's called. I also so I've talked about people who know more than me about this, and they've told me that that is. It sounds like a really big problem, but it's a smaller problem than it is made out to be, just because of the quantity of it. You would need to have insane amounts of large language model generated text for it to really start to actually break down the system of like to break down the quality of the output. But yeah, it's very possible that eventually we get there, but they're going to be filtering it out some way or another. We'll see. But yeah, no. Again, this is whether it works or not, it's gonna have an impact in one way or another. Okay. Should we go back to the ICJ ruling? Okay. Let me take a quick breather. I'll bring the cats for a quick break in the stream. What's your thoughts on the impact of AI? She doesn't seem too convinced. Or she's resting. Okay. Come on. You can stay here. Yes, good girl. Hmm? Boop. She's adorable. Almost nighttime, aka hunting time for cats. Yeah. I loved I think Yako said this a few streams ago. This is actually a cat stream. They just need my thumbs to press on the stream button. You can tell she really loves me. She doesn't well, she's feistier sometimes. Sometimes she's in the mood to actually bite me, but when she's playing, she's just like she nibbles on my finger, like the teeth make contact and she stops as soon as they make contact. But she can get a bit feistier than that, and sometimes she's in a bad mood and she would just wants me to back off so she can actually bite occasionally, but it doesn't happen too often. Anyway, so where were we in the... Yeah, we're not going to read this. This is too long. It was this. Okay, yes. It was this, and it was this size on screen. And I need to move it like that. Perfect. I have to go away for like 40 minutes. Don't do too many interesting things without me. Noted. We're just going to be reading this probably for the next 40 minutes, which I think you already got the gist of it, but we'll read about it some more. Okay. All states are under an obligation not to recognize as legal the status arising from the unlawful presence. So, for people who weren't here when we started the stream, the ICJ put out the only type of ruling that they're able to put out, which is an advisory ruling, which is basically non-binding because there is no binding mechanism for anything that has to do with international law, that declares definitively as it can be declared in international law, the status of the occupied Palestinian territories as illegal, and declares that yes, so OPT is unlawful. Israel's presence there is unlawful. Israel should bring an end to its presence in the OPT as rapidly as possible. Should cease immediately all new settlement activities and it evacuates all settlers. And this is the biggest one. This is really the biggest one. Evacuates all settlers from the occupied Palestinian territory. There's 700,000 settlers, Israeli settlers, in the OPT. And the ICJ is saying those settlements need to be dismantled. Those 700,000 people need to be forcibly moved back to officially recognized Israeli territory outside of the West Bank. Hi, I just got here. Has Biden's withdrawal been mentioned yet? Yeah, we looked into it. We talked about it for a good amount of time. Yeah, no, this is really, really big. And then you have another really big aspect. Israel has the obligation to make reparations for the damage caused to all natural and legal persons, so all actual people and any kind of legal entities, whether they're associations, companies, governments, ONGs, NGOs, sorry, government organizations, any kind of institution that has been affected by the the occupation, which is basically everything in the West Bank. Israel should make reparations for it. And so we were here. All states are under an obligation, and this is pretty big, are under an obligation not to recognize as legal the situation arising from the unlawful presence of the State of Israel in the occupied Palestinian territory, and not to render aid or assistance in maintaining the situation created by the continued presence of the State of Israel in the occupied Palestinian territory. Cody, we will also put as soon as possible a segment on this on the second channel. By the way, anyone who isn't subscribed to the second channel, youtube.com/@barelyinfodumps. Let me post it here. And I'm currently doing as much as I can to, and this is not the fault of Yako, who's editing the segments. I'm doing as much as I can so that we can post more of these faster and more regularly. I haven't had enough time to dedicate to this, and I need to make changes to how I run the channel so that more of that content can be posted faster, especially for big breaking news like the Biden withdrawal. I'll do we need to be able to put those out faster, and that's on me. So more of these are going to be posted. You don't need to watch the entire 3 to 5 hour streams to watch those